When I taught beginner French at a community college, one of my adult students, a man in his 40s, grew visibly frustrated when we discussed grammatical gender. He slammed his textbook shut and said, "This makes no sense. Why is a chair feminine and a book masculine? It's a chair. It doesn't even have gender parts. Is this some new political thing to confuse people?" He was dead serious. He honestly believed gendered nouns were part of a modern social agenda, not something that's existed in languages for centuries. My company sent an American manager to our Tokyo branch. During his big introduction meeting, he tried to motivate the Japanese staff by using a string of baseball idioms. "Let's step up to the plate, swing for the fences, and knock this project out of the park." The room went silent, just polite smiles and blinking. Later he told me they didn't understand a thing I said. Guess they're not very business savvy. He genuinely thought baseball metaphors were universal business communication. In Rome, I once saw an American tourist yelling at his car's GPS. The navigation voice pronounced the Italian street names perfectly, Via del Corso. But the man shouted, "No, it's Via del Corso. Speak English." He insisted the device was malfunctioning and turned it off, muttering that it was a stupid foreign setting that doesn't know real English. He couldn't grasp that Italian words were, in fact, Italian. At a hostel in Scotland, an American traveler was amazed by the Glaswegian accent. He asked a local man, "So how long did it take you to learn to talk like that? Is there a special class for it?" The man looked confused. "I've spoken like this since I was a kid." The tourist nodded seriously. "Wow, the dedication. You really stay in character all the time." He thought Scottish people were performing a regional dialect instead of, being Scottish. My American roommate in Berlin nearly had a breakdown at an ATM because the menu was in German. Instead of pressing the British flag button for English, he called me whispering in panic. "It's talking to me in German. I think it's a scam. It's going to eat my card." I calmly told him, "Just press the button with the little flag." He did, and was stunned when it worked, as if I'd just performed high-tech wizardry. In my high school, we once had a substitute teacher from the Midwest. When she read the attendance sheet, she called out, "Javier." A student raised his hand and said politely, "It's Javier." She smiled and replied, "Not anymore. We're in America, we'll say it the American way. Makes it easier for everyone." She spent the entire semester calling him Javier, proudly believing she was helping him fit in. During a Spanish immersion course, a girl from California was struggling. One afternoon, she wanted to tell a group of locals that she was hot from the sun. Instead of saying, "Tengo calor," she proudly declared, "Estoy caliente." The locals burst out laughing. She turned red and snapped, "Spanish is so dumb. How am I supposed to know that means something else?" She had just told everyone she was sexually aroused, but blamed the language for tricking her. At my old job, two coworkers from Puerto Rico liked chatting in Spanish during their breaks. Their American supervisor called them into her office and said, "You're creating an unprofessional and exclusionary environment." She told them, "If I can't understand what you're saying, you could be gossiping or plotting something. All conversations must be in English from now on." They were stunned. Apparently speaking their own native language was now considered suspicious activity. While watching the World Cup in a London pub, an American tourist saw the Portuguese word football flash across the TV screen. He laughed and pointed, "Ha! They can't even spell football right. That's adorable." He genuinely believed that English speakers had invented both the sport and the word, and that the rest of the world had misspelled it ever since. An American executive visiting our Shanghai office was given a tour of a museum. When he saw ancient Chinese scrolls filled with calligraphy, he asked the guide, "Okay, but what did they use for their real alphabet? For letters and stuff?" The guide blinked. "These are the letters." The man nodded sympathetically, as if humoring a child, and said, No, before English took over. He thought thousands of years of written language were just decorative art. At a party, my Swedish friend spoke flawless English, no accent at all. An American guy found out she was Swedish and was floored. He said, "Your English is perfect. You don't even sound foreign. Your parents must have paid for expensive accent training, huh?" The idea that someone could just learn English naturally, without an American passport or a $10,000 tutor, blew his mind. An American tourist drove into a Welsh village and stopped to take a photo of a sign reading Llanfairpwll Gwyngyth Bigareth Wandrabeth Lentasilia Go Go Gok. He laughed so hard he had to lean on his car. Then he walked into a shop and said, "Okay, good one. That sign's a prank, right? What's the real name of the town?" The shopkeeper simply pointed out the window. The tourist shook his head. "You can't expect people to pronounce that. Someone should fix it." We once sent an American IT technician to our Paris office to help install new computers. Within an hour, he sent an urgent email to headquarters titled, "All French keyboards are broken." He claimed the letters were out of order and unusable. Before anyone could reply, he tried fixing one by physically rearranging the keys into the QWERTY layout with a screwdriver. He destroyed the keyboard and then complained that Europe needs to standardize its tech. At a cafe in southern Germany, an American confidently ordered a latte. The waiter, understanding Italian, brought him a glass of warm milk. The man exploded. "No. A latte, coffee. It's the same everywhere." The waiter tried to explain he should have said milch kafe, but the tourist waved him off. He stormed out, declaring, "They're just scamming tourists with overpriced milk." An American couple went to see Parasite in a theater. The Korean film was, of course, subtitled. Halfway through, the husband groaned, "This is torture. Why don't they just dub it? Reading a movie defeats the purpose." He loudly announced, "It's like doing homework." To him, subtitles weren't a cultural bridge. They were an inconvenience that needed to be eliminated. My American friend tried learning Italian before visiting Rome. When the teacher explained that the plural of cappuccino was cappuccini, he frowned. "That makes no sense," he argued. "Just add an S like everyone else." He grew frustrated that Italian grammar didn't conform to English rules, as if other languages were breaking some global agreement. At the Acropolis in Athens, an American tourist stared at the ancient Greek inscriptions. He asked his guide, "So this was all before English, right? How did people communicate back then? Just gestures?" The guide's face froze in polite disbelief. The man nodded confidently, as if confirming a theory. "Wow, imagine living before real words existed." At our company's Mexico City office, an American client called the help desk. The automated voice began, "Para Español, oprima uno." Before it reached the English option, he started shouting into the phone, "Customer service. Speak English." He hung up in frustration and later reported that the company didn't have proper English support. He never realized he had just interrupted the part that was literally about to offer English. In Moscow, an American tourist stared at a Russian street sign written in Cyrillic. He laughed and said to his son, "Look at that. They tried to copy our alphabet but messed it up. The R is backward, and the N looks like an H." He shook his head and added, "They should just switch to normal letters so people can actually read this stuff." To him, Cyrillic wasn't another writing system, just a botched version of English. During a global video call, an American manager wanted to compliment his colleagues from Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. At the end, he said proudly, "Shout out to my teammates who speak Asian. I know it's a tough language, but you're doing amazing." The virtual room went silent. He genuinely believed Asian was a single language, as if an entire continent spoke one tongue. A tourist in China insisted on calling Beijing, Peking. When the local guide explained that Beijing is simply the modern spelling of the same name, the man refused to accept it. He said, "You can't just rename an ancient city. That's confusing for everyone. It's been Peking for hundreds of years." He treated the official Chinese pronunciation as a personal inconvenience rather than linguistic evolution. In an international business class, our British professor said, "We'll meet again in a fortnight." An American student raised his hand and asked, "Is that like slang or something? Can you use a real word like 2 weeks?" The professor blinked, unsure if it was a joke. The student wasn't joking, he genuinely thought Fortnite was made-up nonsense only used to sound fancy. While vacationing in the Dominican Republic, an American family sat by the pool. Two staff members nearby were quietly chatting in Spanish. The mother leaned toward her husband and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I don't like that. It feels suspicious when they talk in their language." She gathered her kids and left, convinced that ordinary conversation was somehow secretive or threatening. During a meeting, a German colleague shared his screen. In the corner, the date read 11.05.24. Immediately, an American manager interrupted, "Hans, your system's wrong. It says May 11th, not November." The German calmly explained the European day-month-year format, but the manager insisted, "No, that's not universal. The real way is month first." He then tried to teach a room full of Europeans how to read dates properly. In Naples, an American tourist crossed the street and gave a cheerful thumbs up to the driver who had stopped for him. The driver immediately started shouting and gesturing angrily. The American turned to his wife, baffled. "What is wrong with these people? I'm being nice." He didn't realize that in Italy, the thumbs-up gesture can be seen as a rude insult, the equivalent of flipping someone off. After moving to a diverse neighborhood in Houston, an American man complained, "Every time I call my pharmacy, I have to press 1 for English. I live in America, why should I have to pick my own language?" He seemed unaware that bilingual phone menus exist to help people, not to punish him. To him, inclusivity was an inconvenience. While working as a waiter at a fine dining French restaurant, I had a customer point at pommes frites on the menu. I explained it was simply French for fried potatoes. The man scoffed, "So, French fries? Why not just call them that? Writing it in French is pretentious." He was visibly annoyed that the restaurant dared to use the native language of the cuisine it served. An American watching a BBC news segment in Berlin rolled his eyes when the reporter ended her broadcast with a short phrase in German. He turned to his wife and muttered, "We get it, she's in Germany. No need to show off with gibberish." He found the use of local language rude, as if speaking anything but English on international television were a personal insult. My cousin bought a high-end digital camera while visiting Tokyo. When he turned it on, the menu was in Japanese. He got furious. "Unbelievable. This is a global company. They should know Americans buy the most electronics. It should start in English by default." He spent an hour pressing buttons at random instead of selecting the English option that was available from the start. An American exchange student studying in India grew frustrated while learning the Devanagari script. He groaned, "Why are the letters so curly and weird? The line on top just gets in the way. English letters make so much more sense." He concluded, "This isn't even writing, it's drawing pictures." To him, anything that didn't resemble English script couldn't possibly be a real alphabet.